We move on a little bit to Sheung Wan. This is the original coastline here. This is the footpath that leads to, this is the Queen's Road footpath. The ferry pier is here on this headland. The headland comes down quite steeply here. This is the village of Untitled from the earliest map. You can see very, very tiny. It had some fields here. This is in the Jarvis Street area. But mostly this village served the ferry pier. This is the original water line here. And you can see how there's been layers and layers of reclamation down to the 1860s. This was reclaimed in bits very early, mostly by the local Chinese merchants. This shows the part of the area in 1847. Sorry about that. This was put onto PowerPoint rather hurriedly. And you can see here the Harwan squatter area. This is Queen's Road. Here. This is the end of Wellington Road here. Today Bonham Strand goes through here. No Bonham Strand here. These squatter houses were built on the fields of Untitled village, and there was a second row here built over the sea. So built on stilts over the sea, wooden ones, not included on the map, which only has the stone and brick houses, but there was a row of wooden ones behind. These are the other of these major European homes here. Governor Pottinger was a man capable of being an unpleasant man. He had a big row with a major American businessman called Bird. This is Bird's house here. And he deliberately built Wellington Road to destroy it and gave no compensation. On the other hand, he had a very good relationship with the Gilman's company. This is the Gilman's house, and he built Aberdeen Street here carefully to leave it. So you needed to be on the right side of the governor in the 1840s. This area was redeveloped shortly afterwards by a Chinese developer, the first major Chinese developer. Again, just as further east, the best use was Chinese shop houses, so this area gets developed in the 1850s by the first major Chinese developer. The central part here was a market, and these were shop houses on the two sides. Later this market moves and becomes the Sheung Wan market of today. Very late in the process, while he was doing this and he was building it all up, Gibb Livingston, that owned much of this land, suddenly realized that they were losing their access to the sea. I said Gilman's, I meant Gibb Livingston. Their headquarters were here, their warehouses were here. They didn't have a seafront offices. They had used the public pier, which was here. But they suddenly realized that this development was going to close access to the public pier, and they quickly managed to buy this narrow triangular bit to avoid being cut off from the sea. And they still use the old public pier here. So this is the pre-British public pier. It was rebuilt by the British in 1860 when this area was developed. Going a little bit round the corner, this is the area around Queen Street. Again, exactly the same thing. Land sold on Queen's Road, reclaimed back into the sea. The original shoreline is about here. And again, it ends up as small Chinese shop houses. The whole area is small Chinese shop houses. These shop houses have disappeared. There's nothing left of the first generation of Hong Kong Central's development. There is effectively nothing left of the second generation either. This is the second generation. Buildings, when they were built here, these shop houses were normally built two-storied, and in the 1860s or 70s, and they were normally demolished in about 1900, 1890, 1900, 1910, and replaced with 3- or 4-story shop houses, Tonglao, on the same sites. But both the original and the second generation have gone. You can see, my apologies, that these European developers were perfectly happy to develop in a Chinese way. The lanes that had access were very narrow, and these were usually only 10 feet wide. Sometimes, like this one, they were only 5 feet wide. This area here had access through these two very narrow lanes, this one and this one here. And there was no provision of services, there was no drinking water, there was no sewage. The colonial surgeon said that most of the Chinese shophouses in Hong Kong were built slightly quaking on a morass of sewage underneath. And not surprisingly, plague struck in these areas.